I cheated on my husband, thinking I was smart. But while I was sneaking around, he was planning revenge that destroyed my life. My name is Ariana. I'm 32, and I destroyed my own marriage. People might say Xavier was a good husband, that he tried too hard, that I should have been grateful. But the truth? I was suffocating. I had been married to Xavier for 8 years, together for 12. He was 34, worked in supply chain management, something I never fully understood. I worked in a small clinic doing paperwork and schedules. We weren't rich, but we were stable. That stability felt less like comfort and more like a cage. When we first met in college, Xavier was this bold, carefree guy. Women were always around him, and he didn't care. He lived in the moment. That energy pulled me in. I thought I was the one who made him settle down, who turned the player into a husband. But marriage changed him into someone else. He became obsessed with being perfect. He remembered every date, our first kiss, our first time saying I love you, even the first time we cooked together. At first, it felt flattering. But as the years passed, it became unbearable. Every little thing was a celebration. Every night had to be special. He made our marriage into a routine performance, like he was trying to win an award for Husband of the Year. Every morning, coffee in bed. Every evening, detailed questions about my day, what I ate, who I spoke to, how I felt about meaningless things. Friday was date night, always carefully planned. Sunday was farmer's market, followed by meal prep. Week after week, the same cycle. No surprise, no breath of fresh air. Just structure, schedules, and his constant hovering. It wasn't abuse. He wasn't cruel. But it felt like drowning in love I didn't ask for. That's when Michael appeared. He was 29, working at a sister office, and started attending our inter-office meetings. He was funny, sarcastic, the complete opposite of Xavier's forced charm. When the boss droned on, Michael would give me a look that made me laugh. After meetings, a group of us grabbed coffee, and I started looking forward to those moments more than anything else. Michael asked different questions. He wanted to know what I wanted, not what I had done. He challenged me, teased me, reminded me that I was more than just someone's wife. We texted between meetings, silly memes, random thoughts, inside jokes. With him, I didn't need to explain every breath. I just existed, and he accepted it. At first, I told myself it was harmless, just a friendship. But I started silencing my phone around Xavier, not because I was guilty, but because I couldn't stand his endless questions. Who's texting you? What did they say? He wasn't suspicious, just overly curious, but even that felt like chains tightening around my neck. The first time Michael and I touched outside of work was at a weekend conference. Everyone else left the hotel bar, but we stayed, talking until closing. We compared our suffocating relationships, laughed at how trapped we both felt. And when I looked at him, I didn't see just a coworker. I saw an escape. One thing led to another, and I ended up in his hotel room. I didn't plan it. I didn't think about Xavier waiting at home with his routines. I only thought about how alive I felt for the first time in years. No rules, no schedules. Just passion. That night started everything. Afterward, I told myself it was just a mistake, but I didn't stop. Michael became my secret oxygen. Lunches, texts, stolen afternoons. He made me laugh. He made me feel young again. And he reminded me that I was still desirable. Xavier noticed I was suddenly lighter, more affectionate, even initiating intimacy at home. He thought his efforts were finally paying off. He had no idea I was surviving on someone else's attention. I thought I was clever. I thought I was in control. But Xavier wasn't blind. While I was busy sneaking around, he was watching. Quietly, patiently. And the man I thought was weak, needy, and boring was preparing something I never expected. But that's not where the story ends. That's just where it begins. The weeks after that first night with Michael blurred into something intoxicating. Every stolen moment made me feel more alive, like I was finally awake after years of being half asleep. He wasn't just someone I kissed in secret. He became the piece of my life I thought I was missing. We texted all day. Jokes, pictures, little confessions we never told anyone else. I'd sneak replies when Xavier was in the shower or glued to his sports games. I thought I was clever, deleting threads, turning off notifications, making excuses. But the truth? I was reckless. I started saying I was meeting friends after work when I was really with Michael. Long lunches turned into afternoons at his apartment. Sometimes he picked me up from work, and I'd come home late, claiming traffic. Each lie came easier than the last. The irony was that I felt like a better wife to Xavier. I smiled more, tolerated his routines, even gave him affection without rolling my eyes. He thought he was winning me back. He had no idea I was simply happier because my real needs were being met somewhere else. Michael wasn't perfect either. He had a girlfriend. He told me she planned their entire lives without asking what he wanted. I told myself that made it fair, that we were both victims of partners who didn't understand us. That excuse made it easier to cross the line again and again. Meanwhile, Xavier seemed to change. He stopped being clingy. He stopped asking about every little thing. He encouraged me to go out, suggested I take weekends for myself, even smiled when I said I was grabbing drinks with coworkers. I thought he was finally learning to trust me. I thought he was giving me the space I'd begged for. What I didn't realize was that his silence wasn't trust. It was strategy. Xavier was watching me more carefully than ever. He wasn't confronting me. He was recording, tracking, and preparing. While I was sneaking into Michael's apartment, Xavier was checking the mileage on my car. While I was texting Michael under the table, Xavier was already pulling records from our phone plan. While I thought I was free, he was quietly turning my life into a case file. I was too wrapped up in Michael to notice. We were growing bolder, riskier. Long lunches at hidden restaurants. Late-night drives just to sit in his car and talk. We shared stories about our childhoods, dreams, regrets. He made me feel seen in a way Xavier never did. And yet, I never once considered leaving my husband. Why would I? I had both. Stability at home, passion on the side. Xavier's routines kept my world grounded while Michael gave me the fire I craved. In my head, it was perfect. But perfection is fragile. It doesn't take much to shatter it. Looking back, the warning signs were there. Xavier stopped asking to hold my phone. He stopped questioning the late nights. He started smiling too easily, letting me walk out the door with a kiss and no suspicion. I thought I had finally broken free of his suffocating grip. In reality, I had walked straight into his trap. And when it finally snapped shut, I realized too late that Xavier was never the weak man I thought he was. He was patient. He was deliberate. And he was about to destroy me in a way I never saw coming. It happened on an ordinary Tuesday. I had just come back from one of my long lunch breaks with Michael, still glowing from the thrill of sneaking around, when a woman in a sharp suit stopped me at the clinic doors. "Are you Ariana?" she asked. I nodded, confused. She handed me an envelope, wished me a good day, and walked away without a word. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside were divorce papers with my name printed in bold at the top. And not just papers, stacks of evidence. Screenshots of texts between Michael and me. Pictures of us at restaurants, hotels, even in his car. GPS records showing where I had really been when I claimed I was out with friends. Xavier had been building a case against me for months, quietly and carefully. And I had walked right into it. The humiliation hit me before the heartbreak. My coworkers were watching as my face drained of color. They saw the photographs, the legal stamps, the ugly truth laid bare in documents I couldn't deny. In one envelope, Xavier had exposed me to everyone. I drove home in a daze, expecting to find him waiting to fight, to scream, to demand answers. But the house was empty. Not just empty, stripped. His clothes were gone. His toiletries gone. His favorite mug from the kitchen gone. It was like Xavier had never existed in that house at all. When I tried calling, his phone went straight to voicemail. The message was short. All communication had to go through his lawyer. I checked our bank account. Half the money was gone, down to the exact cent. Credit cards were canceled. Utilities had been transferred into my name. While I was sneaking around, Xavier had been carefully erasing himself from my life. Panic rose in me, so I called Michael. Surely, he would comfort me. Surely, He would stand by me now that the truth was out. But when he answered hours later, his voice wasn't warm. It was furious. His girlfriend had received her own package of evidence. Photos of us. Screenshots of texts we thought were private. Every secret laid bare in her hands. Michael wasn't supportive. He wasn't romantic. He was angry. He said I had ruined his life, that I had been careless, that I should have known Xavier was suspicious. He blamed me for everything. And then, just like that, he said we couldn't see each other anymore. He had to fix things with her. The man I thought was my escape, the man I risked everything for, abandoned me with one phone call. In less than a day, I lost both men. My marriage was destroyed, my affair was cut off, and the walls of my perfect little double life crumbled around me. But Xavier wasn't finished. He didn't just want me gone. He wanted me humiliated. Over the next week, friends and family started calling. Each one of them had received anonymous packages, copies of my texts, pictures of my affair, undeniable proof of what I'd done. Xavier had exposed me to everyone. My parents, my siblings, even our closest couple friends. I wasn't just a cheater in Xavier's eyes. I was branded a cheater in everyone's eyes. And I couldn't fight it. The evidence was overwhelming. My lawyer said Xavier had me cornered. There was no chance of defending myself in court. The best I could do was sign the papers and pray he didn't take more. I had thought I was the clever one, the one playing the game. But in reality, I was the fool, and Xavier had been 3 steps ahead of me all along. For years, I called him predictable, boring, safe. But in the end, he was the one who shocked me the most. He didn't scream. He didn't cry. He didn't even give me the dignity of a fight. He simply removed himself from my life and made sure everyone knew exactly why. And I was left standing in the ruins, with no one to blame but myself. The divorce moved faster than I ever imagined. Xavier's evidence was airtight. My lawyer didn't even bother trying to argue. He just told me to sign and accept whatever Xavier offered. Within months, I was living alone in a small 1-bedroom apartment, surrounded by boxes I never unpacked. No husband, no affair partner, no friends who wanted to hear my side of the story. Everyone had already chosen. Xavier, the victim, the man who gave his all. Me, the cheater, who threw it away. Michael didn't save me. He didn't even look back. His girlfriend left him anyway, and instead of turning to me, he cut ties completely. I heard through coworkers that he'd taken a job in another state. Just like that, the man I risked everything for disappeared as if he'd never existed. At least if someone dies, you get closure. But when someone just erases you from their life, you're left with nothing but silence. I tried reaching out to friends, but their voices were cold. Some didn't answer. Others told me bluntly that I had brought it on myself. My own family couldn't even look at me without disappointment in their eyes. I had turned myself into the villain, and Xavier had made sure the world saw it too. What hurt most wasn't losing Xavier. It was seeing how well he was doing without me. Through social media and whispers from mutual acquaintances, I saw him thriving. He moved to a bigger city, started his own business, and seemed more confident than ever. Pictures showed him smiling. Genuine smiles I hadn't seen in years, at events, with new people, traveling, living the spontaneous life I always claimed I wanted. And then came the news that felt like the final nail. Xavier had a new girlfriend. She was younger, radiant, and from what I heard, she adored his thoughtfulness. She didn't see his routines as suffocating. She called them romantic. She appreciated what I had grown to resent. Photos of them together were unbearable. He looked relaxed with her. Not performing, not overcompensating, just happy. Maybe he had never been the problem. Maybe I had been. The bitterness ate at me. I told myself he was manipulative, that he had set me up. But the truth was simpler. He gave me everything, and I still wanted more. Nights in my apartment stretched endlessly. I lay awake thinking about Michael, replaying our conversations, our stolen moments. But those memories turned sour quickly. He hadn't loved me. He hadn't even fought for me. The second things got hard, he abandoned me. What I thought was passion turned out to be nothing but temporary thrill. Dating after the divorce was a disaster. Every man I met lost interest after a few weeks. They saw the cracks I tried to hide, the bitterness, the insecurity, the desperate need to be seen. Compared to Xavier's steady devotion or Michael's exciting charm, I was nothing special. Just another woman with baggage. 2 years later, I learned that Xavier and his new partner were getting married. The celebration was everything I used to say I wanted: grand, full of friends, filled with love. Shortly after, they announced they were expecting a child. Xavier was building the family I once dreamed of, but with someone else. Someone who appreciated him in ways I never did. And me? I was still in that same apartment, still at the same clinic job, still scrolling through my phone at night wondering how my life had collapsed so completely. I had gambled my marriage for a taste of excitement. And in return, I got nothing but emptiness. Michael was gone. Xavier was thriving. Everyone else had moved on. And I was left behind, holding the wreckage of my own choices. Years passed, but the shame never dulled. People told me time would heal, that eventually life would give me a second chance. But deep down, I knew better. He built the future we once dreamed of, just not with me. Every picture I stumbled across on social media felt like a knife in my chest. There he was, thriving, being adored, building memories with someone who valued the very things I threw away. Michael's absence said everything. He was never really mine. The man who had whispered about how much I understood him tossed me aside when the fun ended. I was left with nothing but myself. I tried blaming others, but the truth always came back to me. I had a husband who loved me more than anyone ever will again. Was it perfect? No. But it was steady. It was real. And I traded it for a fling that dissolved the moment pressure hit. The most brutal part wasn't losing them. It was realizing how easily they replaced me. Xavier with his new wife and child. Michael with whatever life he built elsewhere. My friends with new gatherings I was never invited to. Everyone moved on. Everyone but me. I used to think being alone was better than living a suffocating routine. I thought chasing passion, even recklessly, was worth the risk. But passion fades, and when it does, all that's left is the wreckage of what you destroyed to taste it. Everyone moved on. Everyone but me. Time kept moving, but my world stayed frozen in that moment of loss. And when people ask about my marriage, I lie and say it just didn't work out. I don't tell them the truth, that I burned my life down for nothing. I don't get sympathy. I don't get second chances. I don't get to be the victim. I get to be the cautionary tale. And maybe that's all I deserve. This is my reality now. I lost everything for a few months of passion, and no matter how much I regret it, I can't undo what I did. If you think cheating makes you clever, remember my story because it made me lose everything.